Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. I have a new friend to introduce you to today. Her name is Leza Danly. Leza is many fabulous things. She's an author. She believes in presence and vulnerability and healing. She's also a performer and a singer and a storyteller, but she's a traveler. She's going to spend 5 weeks in Europe this fall. She's a reader, an avid reader, and she loves the theater in all forms. And she lives where pickleball was founded, but she's decided she's not a great pickleball player, but you can't live in Bay Bridge Island and not play pickleball, and her husband's in a league. And today, she is our guest on Productive Joy. Welcome, Leza.
Thanks for having me, Christy.
I made you giggle already, so you know what?
Yeah, I was thinking that's a lot of things. And of course, I'm also, for 35 years, a life coach and trainer of life coaches as well.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. But I need people to know that you're a lot more than just a title, right? And we all are. So what would you say to our friends in like 30 seconds or less that would make them go, oh my gosh, am I so excited about this episode?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I would say is if you ever had a dream that was like a gulp dream where you felt like, oh my God, I can barely say this one out loud, then you're going to want to stay with us, because for me, I had a dream like that for 30 years, and it lived in the back of my mind and made my palms sweaty when I thought about it. And last year at the age of 70, I finally realized it. So I look forward to talking about that, because it was a huge, talk about productive joy. It was an incredibly joyful achievement for me. And, I think we can do hard, scary things, shut them down. So that's
I
one reason.
love the way you described that, Lee. The sweaty palms, the oh my gosh, the gulp moment. I know I have those, and I know that the people listening do too. And there's something that's preventing us, something that took you 30 years to get past, to go from, I know I'm supposed to do this, to darn it, I did it. What pushed you over that limitation?
Yeah, it was a combination of moving through the various emotional obstacles, I would say, to it, as well as a timing thing. I think that now was the right timing at 70 for me to look back and tell this mother-daughter story, essentially. And so I think that I had an experience when I was in my 20s, when I was a performer and singer, and I was performing in Asia and singing in Japan, when I had a traumatic experience on stage, and I ran away from performing and thought, I will never go back there. And then I became a coach and did all these other things. But in the back of my mind, it was like, would I ever get back on stage? Would I do that? And I remember seeing Eve Ensler. Did you ever see the Vagina Monologues?
Yes.
When she first wrote it and came out with it, it's more than 30 years ago. And I went with my husband, and we're sitting in the theater, and she's standing there dressed all in black, barefoot in a pool of light. And she starts talking about things that nobody ever talked about. And I thought, and I was kind of like on the edge of my seat, but at the time a voice said, I want to do that. Like, I want to get up there and tell my story, And so that was, I think, the beginning of the dream. And it took really 3 decades of me evolving my story with my mom and understanding it and coming to peace with it and forgiving her and really becoming empowered out of that story. Because I don't think that we do anybody a service when we try to share a story that we haven't fully soaked the healing out of, But I feel complete with it enough that I can offer it now, So I think is that an answer to your question?
A great answer to my question, and it brought more questions because I guarantee you there is not a person listening right now who doesn't have that voice of, that's the thing I really want. That's the first voice that I heard you say. And then the second voice that I think you listen to is, your story's worth telling. And I'm not sure we all listen to that voice, right? We think, oh, right? We just often, I'm just, or I just did this thing. And you took the just out and you said, this is a story worth telling, and it's for whoever's going to listen, and it's not for everyone. I think that's the biggest lesson I'm learning in life, is that I'm a bold flavor and I'm not everybody's favorite bold flavor. And that's okay because I'm not supposed to be, right? So you have this fabulous, and I don't even know what to call it, manifestation, maybe called Soul Breadcrumbs. Will you talk us through what you mean when you say I finally told my story at 70 and
Yeah.
got to that point?
Yeah. And that is the name of the show. It's Soul Breadcrumbs. And first of all, I can't believe that at 70 that I memorized a show that is an hour and 43 minutes and stood alone on the stage. And don't worry, it's not just me talking for an hour and 43 minutes. There's all kinds of audio visual stuff. And I made these little movies and it's a whole
It's immense.
yeah, it's a performance and we recorded it on 4K, so it's beautiful to look at. But for me to realize that, and it comes back to the work I've been doing as a coach for, 35 years. And in my trainings, I have a company called Lucid Living where we've taken people through what I call the Great Story Program to discover what's your great story. And for me, that's like the story that my soul came to tell. And we can get stuck in these other stories, the small story, the victim story. We can start to feel we're at the effect of things in life. But then even when we step out of a victim, we can start to feel like, oh, life is about overcoming and striving and achieving. And I'm just trying to go after my goals. And we can get so stuck in the overcoming story that some people never even touch, like, what's my great story? And the great story isn't like it's not characterized by achievement, but it's really, what is my purpose? What is my soul here? What's my song, to sing? And so for me, I wanted to illustrate that by writing these monologues of me at 10 different ages, from the, 7-year-old child to the 16-year-old adolescent and the 23-year-old young adult, and going all the way through one of my mother's death and all these different moments to kind of illustrate how I moved myself out of victim and even out of overcoming into this great story. So for me, that was the driving force of it. And here's the thing, Christy, because for years I wanted to create examples for people. So I looked through movies, television, all kinds of things. And on retreats, I played clips of, various scenes and looking for moments where people were genuinely emotionally vulnerable. And I found things like Ordinary People and different movies that would express something. But then I thought, there's certain things, I just can't find them. I'm going to write a show. I'm going to illustrate these things. I'm going to show what it's like to actually stand in my child's wound and let her speak, So it was both a creative thing and also, how can I take the work I've been doing for 35 years and make it into a work of art, So.
What a cool melding of all of your talents, right? So you said you started out in theater, you love all things theater, you were on a stage in Asia in your 20s, something happened that did not go well. And you said, okay, hold on, I'm going to put that part to sleep, but I'm still going to help people and I'm going to coach people and I'm going to get them to where they need to be as leaders, as humans. And then those two things got to come together. And what I'm learning, I will turn 50 in November. What I am learning in my stage of life is every single thing that has happened to me, from the college I chose to the, having twins instead of one baby at a time to, all the things have made me exactly designed to be this person. And this person is what the world needs. I love that you got all of those things to come together. Did something give you the confidence or the recognition to put it all together? Because you could have written some stories, right? Because you are a storyteller, but you wanted to bring the theater part into it. And I think that's just another layer. I know you wrote them down. I know that you're an author, right? But where did you figure out that all of it could go together?
That's so great. Yes. And first of all, I completely concur that that's why I call it soul breadcrumbs, because every single thing that we think, oh, that shouldn't have happened, or I wish that hadn't, every part of it is part of this story. It's all sacred to me, So, but yes, I was working on a memoir and I was writing my story as a book, which I'm still doing, but it was starting to be about so many things. And I had this thought, if I had to distill it into, and I was thinking at that point, like 60 minutes on stage, if I had to tell this story lean and mean, like
Yeah.
what would the heart of it be? And I started thinking about that. And then I went off to New York because I try to go to New York once a year to see shows, and we have family there. And I saw Merrily We Roll Along with Daniel Radcliffe and Jonathan Groff and Lindsay Mendez. And my passion for theater got so reignited.
Mhm.
And on that same trip, and this is another like Soul Breadcrumb thing, because on that same trip, I had I have some old, high school friends, a friend of mine that I sang in Disneyland when I was 21 that live in New York. 3 people in that week said to me, "When are you getting back on stage?" Now, nobody had asked me that in decades. Okay. So don't you think that those are like those moments when
Yes.
the universe is tapping you on the shoulder?
Yes.
So when I came home from that trip, I thought, okay, instead of going back to work on the book, I'm going to put that aside and this was the main thing. I had to chunk it down. I thought, okay, I'm just going to write it with no demand that I have to perform it. Just going to write it for me, just to see what I could come up with. Like, could I come up with something I'd be happy with, And then once I did that, I thought, okay, I'm just going to read it on Zoom for a handful of friends, and see what they think, Well, people were crying and laughing. And then I thought, well, I know this one director. Let me reach out to her. Maybe I'll do a staged reading, And then it was like fully embodied characters. I wrote 3 songs. I wrote all these songs and music for it. I had costumes. Pretty soon, it was a full
It
blown
was a
production.
performance.
I hadn't give myself permission to take it in baby steps without that demand, because that's part of my kind of old stories, that I grew up in a household where a lot was demanded on me, and I really felt I was under the pressure to perform a lot. And so for me, setting down demands and just choosing from preference is so key to my productive joy, because I don't want to live under demands. I want to look at everything as an invitation and say, okay, well, maybe I'll just read it for friends. Well, maybe I'll just,
Yeah.
and then each just turned into like, well, and the more you do it, you get more courage,
Yeah.
like, it's just-
Yeah. So
it's-
I have a Post-it note on my desk that actually came from one of my guests. Her name is Amy Kemp, and she has a book called I See You. And in I See You, it talks about the difference between I have to and I get to and I choose to, right? So mine says I want to, I get to, I choose to. And what you just said was exactly that, right? I get to do this. I'm going to choose to put this bigger than just on Zoom with a few friends, right? I get to. And that to me is productive joy. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. So I would love for you to
No,
define well, yeah, go ahead.
You're not going to believe that is the actual blog post I posted yesterday about moving from I get to I have to on my blog.
I love it.
I have a monthly blog, and I put out something called a lucid moment that helps people kind of move into this new paradigm. And that's one of the new paradigm traits, moving from I get to paradigm of demand into the paradigm of invitation. So that's amazing.
Well, see, it was meant to be. And I call that kind of stuff productive joy. But you get your own definition. So I would love for you to walk our listeners through what your definition of productive joy is. Everybody gets their own.
Oh, okay. So I think first I want to like play with productive for a minute, because I think people have an idea that productivity is output, it's achievement, it's checking off boxes. It's like productive is like, oh, I got all this off my to-do list today, And boy, I had a teacher years ago who told me something, and it just turned me around on this, which is that productivity is measured by how much you grow and how much you learn.
Mhm.
And so it's like you could do all these tasks all day long, but did any of it grow you? Did it change you? Did anything there help you to become more of who you really are? Did it move you toward a more authentic you? If not, then that's just busy,
Oh.
And so I think that really making that distinction between productive and busy is so key. So really looking first through the lens of what I'm doing is my work, how I spend my days, is it leading me towards more of who I really am, And if not, how do I shift that? And then for me, so productive joy is anything that has me grow, know more of who I am, and that it's fun, that for me, joy, and we all have to find out what's joy for us.
Yeah.
But for me, it's usually at the intersection of, creativity, connection, something, with people, there's laughter, there's community, and then there's always some kind of sacred element. So that's why for years ago, when my business partner, Janine, and I at Lucid Living, for years, we took people on these week-long retreats. And it was like, well, I don't want to stay in some, crappy retreat place where you're, some rustic thing. Like, let's take people to the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
We went to Punta Bita, Mexico, where we walked on these rose petal strewn paths down to the water and did these rituals on the beach and, sat around and talked about what our great story was. And, for me, that's productive joy, because we're all learning about ourselves, but we're doing it in beauty and sacredness and connection and laughter. We laughed till we cried in that retreat.
Of course.
For me, that's productive joy.
That's a beautiful definition. And I am so glad that you went through your thinking process, because that took us with you, right? And the biggest thing that I took away from what you just said is that productive does not equal busy and shouldn't equal busy. It shouldn't be about output. It's about what you learned in the process. So powerful. As an educator, I am always thinking about what people are learning. What are your takeaways? What's the thing that you're actually going to do with this? Because otherwise, it's just pontification, right? We're just talking to each other and nobody's getting anything out of it. And I just really don't believe in wasting people's time. So I love your definition. Now, here's where it gets hard. How do you help people create productive joy?
Let me think about that one for a minute. How do I help them create it? I think the foundation of that is, in this sort of great story coaching that I've been doing for years, and I make this distinction between these three stories. Like, at any time, we could be telling one of three stories, right? We could be stuck in our victim story where we feel like life is happening to us. We could get stuck in that overcoming story where we're just achieving. Or we can actually look and say, okay, let me look back at all of the circumstances of my life. What is it trying to have me learn? Where is all of this leading me? I didn't have a volatile, abusive mother just for no reason. I believe that on a soul level, I had a mother who absolutely was terrified of any negative emotions. We'd be cheerful all the time. And, so I walked around thinking my emotions were awful. It led me to a marriage where I had someone who was punishing me and volatile and would have charismatic fun days. And then all of a sudden he'd be scary. And it wasn't until, and all this time I thought, oh, anger's bad, because I watched mom be angry and watch my husband be angry. And I thought, no, I can't ever be angry. It wasn't until I finally exploded one day on my own after he punished me and left me. And I just let all this emotion come out. And I had this revelatory experience of complete bliss. And I thought, what is this? And this moment is in my show as well, so I won't completely give it away if you're going to see the show. But it was in that moment that I thought, oh my God, my emotions are the way through. That's what returned me to myself. Denying all these feelings is what separates me from myself. So for me, that set me on a path of understanding my own emotions, mapping a full system of emotions, and working with people for 30 years to help them to be vulnerable and not afraid of those, what they call the scary emotions. I had, let's say, a client who came to me who said, oh, I'm so sick of feeling hurt all the time. But when we got into it, she'd never really let herself stop and feel the raw hurt of being, betrayed and abandoned by her husband. She had been feeling sorry for herself. She'd been blaming. She'd been, righteously angry about it. She'd been a lot of things, but she never really just breathed into the hurt. For me, how I help people find productive joy is by slowing them down and dropping them in to trust their emotions where the gold is, because the vulnerability is where the gems are. And that's what I'm trying to illustrate with the show too, you know? So that's, I would say, how I help them find it, by slowing down and befriending those emotions, and then learning how to discern like which emotions just keep me in a loop, the guilt, the blame, the, you
Yeah.
know, those that are just sort of toxic and keep me cycling those around, versus the ones that return me to myself and my joy. So
Well, Lisa,
that,
Lisa, you answered the question, and it gets my wheels turning, because this was not something I was taught. As I grew up as the daughter of an entertainer, my father had the longest running comedy show in Vegas in the 70s and 80s. And so I was born in 76. I lived that life, watched all of the things that you see when you're in Vegas as a kid. Don't recommend it at all. But I was taught that it had to look good. It didn't have to be good. It had to look good. So you put on your lipstick and, you got your makeup on, you got your heels on, and you figure it out, right? It has taken me years, and I'm in the work as we speak, to recognize that it's okay to sit in the emotion. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram or not.
you bet I am.
Okay, so I'm an Enneagram 7. That shouldn't shock anyone. I am a 7. I am an enthusiastic optimist, and I do not live in feelings very well, because I was taught to push past them back to the happy, back to the good, back to the whatever. And what I'm learning is, and it's taken some really dear friends who were willing to listen and sit with me in that muck, to get to the point where I recognize that there's so much value in sitting in the feelings. I think this generation is better at it, right? So I will say my own children, who are 25, are better at saying, this is what I'm feeling, or this is what I'm going through. And there's a part of me that kind of does the, well, suck it up, you're fine. And then I go, it's probably not the right reaction, because that's what I knew, right? And we operate out of the space that we know. But what I'm so impressed with by you, and what I want people to gather from you, is that you spent your whole life figuring out how to slow down and sit in those emotions so that other people could too. That wasn't what you were taught either. And yet you got better. And I think that's why productive joy exists in my mind, is because this is for people who want to get better, who don't want to sit where they are. They want to gain something. And that's not the achiever mentality. And going back to your 3 stories, it's not the victim and it's not the achiever. It's the leading into where you want to go, right? Like it's this is what I want to be, and this is where I am. So I just rambled a little bit because you're hitting all the marks. And that makes me very excited. So how will people find you, Leza? How people know? Oh, wait, go ahead. Yeah.
Let me just say one thing to that, because my mother was runner-up to Miss America.
Oh, there you go.
I know all about how it looks and all that kind of thing. And I came from a very similar kind of feeling around that. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to relate to you on that.
I feel you. I see you. I understand. And if you haven't ever been in that space, you don't fully understand what it's like to always be on and always be on stage, right? Like there is a thing there.
And I'm an Enneagram 2. So of course, for me, serving and giving and all that is second nature to me. But I had to learn how to do that without sort of the enabling and the codependence.
And losing yourself.
Yeah. So for me, I love helping people, but I had to find, part of my great story is stepping out of rescuing, stepping out of all of that, because great story isn't about achieving, it's about living that passionate, authentic life for you, where you live that triumph of really, moving through that sort of hardest thing, the hard hook, like for me, the codependence, to get past that and have boundaries and live the way I want to live joyfully and serve because I want to, not because I should, all those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So
My
anyway.
my mom is on a similar journey. She is 76 and just moved to Ecuador. Her and her husband decided that's where they wanted to retire. And I'm realizing more and more as time goes by, I felt some sort of way when my mother, who used to live 20 minutes from me, decided to move across the world. And I'm like, but what about me? And what about my kids? And the reality is it shouldn't be about us. And yet she loves us very much. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I see in her is something that I see in you, and that's the recognition that boundaries are healthy. And it's good to say, this is what I need, not this is what other people expect of me, but this is what I need. So thank you for a lot of things. And I know our listeners are very excited about all of those same things, but thank you for choosing a path that allows others to follow from your breadcrumbs. So, how do people find you, Leza?
Well, they can find me a couple ways. First of all, my primary website, which is lezadanly.com. It's Leza Danly.com. My blog site is there. And there's also a link to the other website, which is Soul Breadcrumbs, Soul breadcrumbs.com, where you can watch the show for free. I hope people will want to watch it. And then if you're really curious about how to learn and some of these tools, lucidliving.net is the website that has all my classes. We have audio programs that are self-directed online. And so there's a whole host of emotional mastery and all kinds of great story coaching program, all kinds of things you can find there. So 3 websites, but that's how you can find me.
That's wonderful. And we will drop all of those in the show notes so that people can find them. And I know that I could just keep talking to you forever. And I also know people would stop listening. So we don't want that. Instead, can I ask you some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here we go. What is your definition of fun?
Oh, fun. Well, oh gosh, fun for me, it's similar to what I talked about passion. It's at the intersection of creativity and laughter and play and connection and sacred. But what I think the key point I want to say there is it's not, you have to distinguish between what was fun as a child, what was fun as an adolescent, and what adult fun is, joyous adult fun. Because for the adolescent, it's like freedom from responsibility. Woo, But for the adult, what's really fun is what takes you deeper into ownership of your life. So for me, that's fun.
Oh, I love that. Okay, how do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
How I know? Well, okay. So the tagline of our Lucid Living company is REAL, REAL transformation. And that's an acronym that stands for responsibility, emotional vulnerability, adult authority, and loving. And when I'm doing those things, when I'm taking responsibility for myself, when I am emotionally vulnerable with myself, and then choosing who I want to share that with, when I'm standing in my adult authority and crafting my life and leading from love, then I feel like that's when I'm in my authentic self.
And I love a good acronym. That's wonderful. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Well, again, I think it comes back to REAL. I think it comes back to realness. Do you have time for a tiny story with this?
Of course. Yes.
So this is an extreme example, but it's a good one for what you asked for. In 2016, we were launching the Great Story Coaching Program. We decided to do this big launch. We decided to get a production company involved. We spent a lot of money to get video people out and all this. And so the morning we were going to shoot it in my house. I'm sitting there getting hair and makeup done, and the camera lighting is all setting up. And I get a text that my mom passed away.
Oh,
And I'm thinking, first I'm like shocked. And then, oh my God, now. And then, of course, because of who she is, I just had to laugh and say, okay, you found a way to upstage me today, Mom. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
okay, this is interesting timing. But I mean, I was crushed and I needed to cry and all that. But I couldn't just say, okay, well, screw all this. I had responsibilities, right? So I said, okay, I need time. I went and my husband held me and I cried. It took about a half hour. I called my brother. I found out what happened. I went through all that and I got my makeup redone and I just connected with my why again. Okay, why is this important to me? How can I take this moment, which actually has opened something raw in me because my mom, I adored my mom as much as she was the most challenging relationship in my life. But how do I take the deep vulnerability of this moment and bring it into what this production and this video is all about? And so in a way, it helped me drop even more into my realness. I didn't refer to that on the video at all, but I showed up and I was present. So I guess for me, it's about always honor the emotions, but not indulge the emotions at the cost of everything else. It's like, I need to honor these feelings, and I can tell the child in me, yes, later I'll sit with you and we'll cry. But right now I have a job to do. No. So does that?
Oh, such a good answer. And it took me back to experiences like that, not that extreme, but I guess my dad would say the show must go on. However, that's not what this was. This was an honoring of both who you are and what you set out to accomplish. And I think that's a beautiful marriage of ideas. And that's what it means to find your best self on your worst days. It was a great answer. Lisa, you have had a ton of great answers. I have a page full of notes. I am just so honored that you decided that Productive Joy was a space that you wanted to share your talents and your gifts. And our listeners are so, so lucky to have had you. So thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, I have a final question, and this will not be an easy question because you've said so many beautiful things. And those beautiful things are bringing full circle where we started this conversation about having that gulp dream and choosing to do it and choosing to leave some breadcrumbs along the way so somebody else could follow you. But people by nature can only hold on to one major thing from a 30-minute conversation. So what's the major thing you want to leave people with today?
Well, I guess the major thing is just really to deeply ground in, embrace the idea that our emotions are not obstacles. They are opportunities. They are the path. They are the compass to our life. And that even though we didn't talk about this specifically, that those younger parts of you are still there right now.
Mm.
So that anger you may have stepped over at age 10 and that hurt that you didn't really, let yourself have at 16, those parts of you, those, as I call them, our orphaned selves, they're still waiting for you to come back and make space for them to feel.
Mm.
So I would hope that would be what people would do. They'd come away from this and go, I've got some feelings I've never fully honored, and let me take the time to do that.
Yeah.
That would be my
Well, you've done that for me. And I'm really grateful for it. And I hope, listeners, that you are walking away with the same, with something that's tugging at you going, I haven't ever acknowledged that, or I've never said that out loud, or I've never sat with that feeling, whatever that feeling is. So listeners, I need you to do something. Anything. You got to pick something from what Lisa's shared with us today and do something with it, because otherwise this was just a great conversation between new friends. But I need you to make something different happen as a result. So maybe it is that you're going to sit with your emotions, or maybe it's that you're going to go watch Soul Breadcrumbs, or maybe just honor the big, hairy, audacious goal that you have that you've been kind of ignoring. Whatever the case, I need you to grab it. I need you to do something with it. And I need you to figure out a way to turn fun into action.